Aether Drift, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's the world building has been fun. I've had these ideas bouncing around in my head for years now, and it's been fun to flesh them out and do the writing. And yeah, Operation Naz reads the long one. Engage.
uh, I'm not
I
making a
it.
joke. I'm not making a joke. This is me not making a joke.
Mm-hmm. Um, First and foremost,
Gosh
I
dang
love
it.
this image. This is a really cool image.
I like all of the
Um,
art on this page. It's all really good.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Is
I hope they use the
this?
styling more.
I can't tell which station that is. Do you know which Leo station that is? Are we above? Is this above?
Everest?
Is this above Hurston? I think. I
I
think
think it's
so.
Everest.
I think so too. It looks
I
familiar, and
didn't
that's
think of it, but
where I
I think it's
start off most
Everest.
often.
Because, like, it's definitely not Orson. It's definitely not Gas Giant.
Yep.
It doesn't look it like I see terrain on it. It's not Arcorp.
Yeah.
And it doesn't strike me as Microtech either. I think those collab patterns are Hurston, and I think that it like Bajini, I'm pretty sure I would recognize.
Yeah.
Not Bajini, that's Arcorp. Trestla, I'm pretty sure I'd recognize. I'm pretty sure that's Hurston.
Agreed. So this letter from the chairman came out about 2 weeks ago, and it came out the week after the first server meshing tests that were over the weekend. And since then, we've had a second round of server meshing tests, and that's something that we'll talk about as we get through this, because he does mention some very pertinent things. Oh, Nazar's cam
We
isn't up.
also in the pre
There
in
we
the
go.
pre-show we also talked about oh no, thank you. 2 pound 2 pound 24, 2 pound 42, 2 pound 42
10,
his
10
video
pound
on the
42. Yeah.
configuration. 10 pound 42, same difference.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. His video of how they probably might have maybe configured the servers during the second server meshing test.
He did a
So we
good
did talk a bit
job.
about that.
I'm gonna
I
pull
think it
up.
was interesting that they really didn't know what they were, where the servers were. They're just kind of like, this is probably where they were.
Mm-hmm.
But also that they
Uh,
did 2 different rounds of 800 player tests and they both failed. It's interesting. And also that
I'm,
those tests had 6 servers each. That's wild.
yeah. I dropped the link to that video in the chat. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend going and checking it out. He did a really good job in showing, hey, okay, we just crossed the server boundary and it's this identity, and now we're over here, and we crossed the server boundary again. Here's the identity. It was really good.
Yep.
So,
I mean, it does have an
all,
orange tinge on it if you look right at the
yeah,
Twilight Zone.
I think it. I'm pretty sure that's Hurston, but could be wrong.
Also, this is highly edited.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So
it's been
starting
photoshopped.
off
Just
with
yes.
it starts off with a quote from Marcus Aurelius. So going for the grandiose, and I'll read this first section. Basically, we just break it up. You can take this second section here, and we'll just take turns. So 2023 marked the beginning of a transformative chapter for Cloud Imperium and both of our games. With Alpha 318, our first release of 323, 2023, the team delivered persistent entity streaming, the foundational tech that is necessary for server meshing. As we mentioned in the last letter, PES is not only in the last letter, like the last 2 letters, and then also in the there's a big old write up about it was in the Q&A, and then there was another thing for server meshing talking about PEO, how big PES was and what they did and why they did it, as well as the post-mortem. So they're reiterating all that right here. PES is the hardest part of the work needed for server meshing. That's why, as much as I love 10 pound 42, when he says at the end, he's like, I think that they're going to do this very limited, one server for Stanton, one server for Pyro, and release that with 4.0 because they don't want 3.18 again. I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's
Same.
correct at all, because that's not the minimum viable product that they showed in the previous letter, that they talked about. And the reason that's the minimum viable product is because you have both types of transitions. And if you remember from the server meshing ISE that we only got one episode of at the beginning of last year, they specifically said they're handling the transitions between star systems differently than they handle the transitions between servers within a star system. And that's why it's the minimum viable product, because it has to test both types of transitions in a live environment. And that's why we did an initial test of that first type going from Stanton to Pyro, and now we did a second test testing transitions across servers in Stanton.
Yeah, I also think
Makes
we'll be
sense?
running many more, maybe 3 or 4 more rounds of testing with server meshing.
Oh, easily. Yeah. I expect 2 to 3, maybe 4 months before this goes to Evo.
Yeah.
Of these types of tests.
I think Evo's like, I think a lot of the stuff they need to test for 4.0 is pretty much done and doesn't need a lot of Evo testing.
Yeah, like the you're talking about the pyro and gameplay mechanic stuff, like we talked about. Yeah. People are making a big deal about the stability of these tests, and I'm like, it's the tech preview channel. It's the first time we've tested this. They're getting the information to continue to develop it. They're not going to release it. People are thinking that, oh, well, they're testing now, so it's getting bumped up to 323. It's like, no, they said specifically in the testing chat that this is going to be a long series of tests, because they're finding all the things that break and all the things that hiccup, and the things that slow it down, and they're going to work on those in order to get it as good as it can be prior to a live release. And so the performance that we saw right now and the issues that we saw right now are not final at all, not even close. It's on a 322 build, which doesn't include the mission refactor. That's why missions didn't work, because they're not testing that. That hasn't been incorporated. They're going to run server meshing tests on 323 after it goes live.
Wait, they're testing server meshing in live?
No. When 323 goes live, because with the tech preview channel,
right?
Tech preview is you are testing tech on the patch that is live. A version.
Okay, I see. So
yeah, they're testing server meshing on 320 on a 322.1 build. When 323 goes live, we'll be testing server meshing in tech preview on 323 builds.
That makes sense. I did cover that pre 3.22 because that was the replication layer stuff and how it was going to collapse into whatever is the current. So they'll keep adding the features that are alive into the tech channel, and then they'll collapse the tech channel back into live.
Yes. So sorry, bit of a tangent, but that's an important tangent. That's why we wanted to cover this stuff, because it brings us around full circle. PES is the hardest part of the work needed for server meshing. When 3.18 launched, PES launched with 8 of the 12 required services for dynamic server meshing. 8 of the new services. So that included the replication layer. There's services that are getting refactored, but they're not new. Like the mission service is getting refactored. There's the party system is going to get refactored. All those things will be refactored for server meshing, but they aren't new services. They're just getting updated. Whereas there's 8 new services in PES. 8 entirely new services that had to work together. So that's an exponential. That's not, 8 different things that can go wrong. That's exponential of 8 things that go wrong as all these things interact with each other. And so that makes it that much harder to find the issues. Whereas with server meshing, static server meshing, all we're doing is separating the replication layer, which is something that we had in PES. It's not new tech. It's just being moved off the server. Adding in the functionality of crash recovery. It's not a service really. And then we're just adding in the ability for server meshing. We're not getting those additional services until we get this dynamic server meshing. That's why static isn't really that huge of a leap. It's just we're taking this next step to get data. So the launch of Alpha 3.18 was far more challenging than we anticipated. And we discovered some issues with our backend database. Naz and I talked about this, the ability for it to scale and their vendor that they were using, that only were visible at the scale we see on a live release as opposed to the PTU. Hence why they kicked it out of PTU, because they couldn't get any more data from it at the scale that was in. Even with it being open PTU, they just don't get enough people playing PTU. They couldn't test it at scale, and that was where they ran into issues. Outside of this, we uncovered a lot of little issues that come from a truly persistent universe. While it is amazing to come across a wreck from a player combat a week ago, it is not so fun to try and land at a hangar where the last 3 ships crashed and left debris lying around, blocking your landing pad. We slowly worked through these issues and others, but it was a challenging time both for the development team and the community. These obstacles not only tested our skills and determination, but also demonstrated our resilience as we overcame them. Beyond PES, we welcome the long-awaited implementation of salvage. Yeah, we got hull scraping, and we're getting the we got the sort of first
What?
basic version of.
Okay. So
of,
maybe you have a
whatchamacallit?
similar opinion to what I have. Vehicle munching.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Structural salvage. Whatever you want to call it. So maybe you have the
Long
same
live vehicle
opinion that
munching.
I do, or similar. That sure we have salvage, but it's kind of like a half step of salvage.
Yep.
Okay,
That's probably
because
being a
every
little
time I
generous.
post about lack of economy gameplay, everyone's like, "Well, salvage is in now." Not really, though.
Yeah, we're
And,
like
it's constantly thrown back at me when I say like I'd rather economy gameplay, and there's a lot of combat in everything. It touches everything.
yeah.
Like even
I think
salvage, the majority of the missions you do are combat related.
I think the pendulum swung back a bit too far when they nerfed the money you get from components. I wish we still got paid a little bit better, so it made it worthwhile to
Yeah.
EVA and go get the components and things.
Yep.
You know, and I think probably the price of the cargo that you get from them too, like it's more financially viable to just do more missions than it is to, you know, find a wreck and, you know, salvage the wreck. And people just do that because they enjoy it and it's fun, not because it's a profitable enterprise. Whereas mining is not only fun for
And
the people
cargo's
that enjoy
highly
it,
bugged right now.
yeah, but it's a profitable enterprise. So, and not every ship has its components. So, yeah. But yeah. Anyway, so it is in, but not completely. Accompanied by relevant missions. Traders reaped the benefits of an overhauled, no pun intended, and physicalized cargo system, which continues to this day, and just loving how all that's coming along. While players across the board enjoyed many new missions spanning both the PvE and PvP scenarios.
I'm trying to figure out what exactly traders benefited from physicalized cargo system.
I guess you could say if people have been looking forward to having that sort of gameplay.
But nothing changed.
No, it didn't. And I think
For trading
was-
specifically, nothing's changed.
yeah, trading specifically, no. Cargo hauling, we got like
Salvage
halfway
changed
to where we should
because
be. And this next 323 is going to take us the rest of the way, really.
yeah,
'Cause, you know, we got cargo missions and the freight elevators.
and we actually get to load our trading goods into our ship. But there's no trading and hauling didn't get any updates. The last update to trading was the jank system we have to use for the whole sea. That works only half the time.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
Danger
I have
Hub,
a
I
lot
get
of
what you're saying about the
animosity, just
weak
because
legs. But that's the
people
thing,
keep
is it
yelling at me.
if the only thing
that-
that's valuable to salvage is illegal cargo?
It's not like you like if you have a 2-man crew, one's doing the reclaimer stuff, one's doing the C2 stuff, it's decent. You're good. It's a good +1 to your money. Like it does pay for the reason to be there and fuel. Like it's fine. But it's definitely not like, especially if you get like quantanium and titanium and things like that, and gold and diamonds. Pretty good. It's pretty good. But then the problem is you have to go somewhere where that stuff is sold, and if you store your ship currently with cargo on it, you get these singularity boxes that don't come off the cargo grid until you claim the ship. Not
Whoops.
Also, you can't offload boxes from the reclaimer onto a cargo ship and then go sell them. For some strange reason, that's not what it lets you. It doesn't let you do it. Or onto the Hull C specifically, I guess.
Yeah.
So we were doing that, and it
There
just
still
errored out.
be issues.
There be issues, yes.
Our development journey reached a series of significant milestones last year, all of which took center stage at CitizenCon 2953. The magnitude of this event, I wish I could go again this year, but that ain't happening. The magnitude of this event for everyone at CIG cannot be overstated, especially considering it marked our first in-person CitizenCon in over 4 years. We have been powered by all of your excitement since the very beginning of the journey, and we've missed the energy that comes from spending time together, sharing our mutual excitement about what we're building. The show was an incredible affirmation of all our hard work both on Star Citizen and Squadron 42 in 2023. Kicked off our best Q4 ever in terms of player logins and engagements. Thanks to all of you, and a huge wave in Q4 2023, or a huge wave in Q4 2023 was our best year yet, with record highs in daily active players, monthly active players, unique logins, and hours played for the year. More than 1.1 million of you set foot into the persistent universe in 2023, which is nuts. That's just crazy. Yeah. The other major milestone in 2023 was welcoming the team at Turbulent fully into the CIG family. Our partners since the end of 2012, Turbulent have been responsible for large parts of our online infrastructure and have greatly contributed to our growth and success. This acquisition allows us to streamline our efforts and formally gives us a significant presence in Montreal, Canada, which is a hotbed of video game talent. We're definitely going to see more hiring going on there in the future. As part of this acquisition, we gained 2 key senior executives. Benoit Bassajour, the Chief Technical Officer of Turbulent, who now becomes the CTO of Cloud Imperium and the head of our core technology group. You already know Benoit from his presentations on our server meshing plans at the last 2 Citizen Cons. I got to talk to Benoit for like 45 minutes. Super great dude.
Nice.
Loads of fun talking to him about server meshing and their plans going forward. The second key executive to join our ranks is Mark Baudet.
But
I'm not sure. I don't want to say bidet because that sounds like a potty, but it's Baudet, I think, who is the CEO of Turbulent and becomes our senior vice president, studio operations, in charge of the operations and welfare of the 1,000+ people working on Star Citizen and Squadron 42, spread between our 5 offices in Austin, Texas, Los Angeles, California, Manchester, England, Frankfurt, Germany, and now Montreal, Canada. As I look back on 2023, with a few months now to reflect and appreciate the hard work of the team around me, I can say that our experience at CitizenCon 2953 and the excitement from our community both at the show and in the game, as I logged into Star Citizen in record numbers last year, left me feeling not only proud, but also deeply grateful and reinvigorated for the year ahead. What was this video?
It's spelled the same.
Oh, year in review. Okay. Don't need to watch that. All right.
His name is spelled the same.
Okay. Naz, I'm going to let you kick off for this bit. I know a lot of people got hung up on them using this concept art for the jump point. And
I really hate that they're removing that. I really do. I really like the ring idea.
I think the ring idea is great. They put a lot of work into it. I think it makes sense for the locations that it makes sense for. Like if you have a highly trafficked jump point, it makes sense to have a ring and have the ring be opening the jump point for your ships, and it's more cost effective that way. You don't have to use your jump point and use your fuel and what have you. It's really cool and cinematic.
I don't really
looking.
care about the justification. I just like the art.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you can make it make sense. Pyro, going to Pyro doesn't have one, but this one, going to
the one
Terra or what have you.
Stanton and Terra absolutely would have one.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe they still will end up going with it and bringing it back.
I think It was either
Dave
Dave
Attic,
or
yeah.
Voice Bomb that said, "Yeah, we might not, but yeah, heck, we might have them anyway. We might decide to go back on what we went back on. So you know what? Just let it happen."
Yeah, having just the glowy bit to me feels anticlimactic after you go through this because
Yeah,
it's small. You know,
yeah. I really
it
like
looks.
the first jump to Pyro looked perfect. Back to was it year 2 3 years ago?
Oh, in 2019 with the gate.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and the carrot.
The
Yeah.
Carrick one, the one that you used for the stupid intro. Yeah,
Yep.
that was perfect. That was great. Like, and it was all broken on the other end. It looked great. I don't know why they're not doing that anymore. It's saddening, but it's their game, not mine. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and
I'm
what
gonna
a
go grab a
year it's
beer.
shaping up to be. On the Squadron, nope, on Squadron 22, that is taking the game from feature complete to content complete, ensuring the game has the necessary polish and feels worthy of being a spiritual successor to Wing Commander. To this end, the team is hard at work, heads down, driving towards the finish line. I'm incredibly excited about how the game is shaping up, and we will have more to share with you at this year's CitizenCon, which will be held in Manchester, England. On the Star Citizen front, the teams are preparing to deliver server meshing and expanding the universe of Star Citizen to multiple star systems. One of the key milestones of human achievement in the lore of Star Citizen is First Jump Day. With legendary human astrophysicist and pilot Nick Croshaw discovered navigated the first jump point on 10th of April 2271, and became the first human to visit a planetary system beyond Sol. Eventually, that system was named Croshaw in his honor. His journey was described as the jump that changed the course of humanity, and led to the starfaring future we depict in Star Citizen and Squadron 42. You might wonder, why am I telling you this story? Well, a little ahead of the historic date on April 10th, we had our own first Jump Day celebration on Star Citizen's Tech Preview channel this weekend. That was
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Okay. 2 weeks weekend ago.
And they really should change the first jump day
So that was
to that.
2 weeks. That was the 9th. I think it was the 9th, right?
I think so.
Okay. So, as a community, as a force for good, we're banding together and changing first jump day to March 9th, 2271. So just keep that in mind. We'll will it into existence, as we've done many other things. For our test of our progress on server meshing and the replication layer technology, we opened our first functional jump gate and allowed players to test traveling between our two systems for the first time in our history. Players were able to travel between Stanton and Pyro via wormhole, with each system streaming in and out seamlessly. For those of you interested, our versus Nick Croshaw honor goes to an Evocati member called Mr. Trash, who we believe was the first in the community to successfully jump, which means there was probably a lot of unsuccessful jumps. During the test, it was worth highlighting that we also achieved 350 concurrent players in a single shard, e.g. a replication layer with 2 connected servers, setting a new record for concurrent players in a single instance of Star Citizen, which was then heavily blown out of the water by the next test with nearly 800 people.
Before you continue, I think this is important point of clarification too, is with static server meshing, we're not going to have when a game server, a shard spins up, a new shard spins up, it will spin up with one replication layer and however many servers they decide to go with for this initial configuration. And that will be what it stays until that shard turns off, shuts down, if that makes sense. That's why it's called static, because the There's only one replication layer that doesn't change. That's static. And say they do the 2 servers in Stanton, 2 servers in Pyro, that's static. They won't be adding more servers to it or anything like that. It will be that configuration will be that shard, and it won't change until that shard goes down. Now, what they can do, and that's why crash recovery is so important, is if one of those 4 servers is starting to have issues, they can turn it off. They can crash it and spin up another one, and the shard will keep on going. Because obviously a server can get bogged down over time, and gets it essentially gets starts to show its age the longer it's been running. And so the server meshing will help a lot with that, but they can they can literally just spin up a new server and swap it out in order, and you'll just have that hiccup like a server disconnect, like they showed off with the crash recovery test with the replication layer separation, and that's what you'll see. And then server number 2 for Stanton will go down for 30 seconds to a minute, and then a replacement server will pop back up after being populated by the replication layer with all the information that it needs. But I think that's an important thing because people don't seem to understand the whole shard aspect of what that entails and what static server meshing really means. And because as great as these tests have been, I think it's thrown some confusion out there as people thinking, oh, okay, well, sometimes it'll be 8 servers, and sometimes it'll be 4, and sometimes it'll be 6, whatever. And the player count will change dynamically. No, when 4.0 goes live, every single time a shard goes up, it will be in the set static configuration.
Player counts will be as dynamic as they are currently.
Yeah, it can fluctuate a little bit, but right now, it's 100 and some and change, whatever. And so maybe it'll be 400, and sometimes it'll go up and down a little bit, but the number of servers won't change, and the single replication layer won't change. What changes with dynamic server meshing is where we can not only scale up more servers dynamically, but we can also, once we reach that level where the replication layer is getting taxed, they can subdivide that level, that responsibility, and spin up what's called another replication layer. An individual replication layer is called a replicant. And that's what dynamic is. It's not just more servers, it's more replication layers to handle that load as well. Sorry, please continue.
All right. After many hard years of work towards a goal many thought was impossible, and many have said as much, we are on the cusp of delivering one of the final pieces of technology that will enable a connected, shared universe that thousands of players can experience together at the same time. I invited Benoit, who oversaw this historic test, our new CTO, to share a few thoughts about the monumental milestone he helped bring to fruition. You want me to go ahead and read that as well? Yeah, where am I stopping? Because I started at the headline.
It doesn't
the
break up evenly.
Nope.
I'll do this next one. And it's so on the cusp of delivering one of the final pieces of technology. And this is important because they talked about this back in 2018.
Yep.
And how this is one of the final, this is, basically the final piece of, of technology. Now, obviously there are things like Vulkan and other things, but those aren't necessary for, they're not as foundational as this. Those are really nice to haves, and it's going to make a big difference, but it's not the bedrock that the game is built on, especially when we're talking about this part, the connecting, lots and lots of players, thousands of players. Benoit says, as the new CTO at Cloud Imperium, I'm thrilled to join the CIG family and lead our technology group. We're dedicated to pushing boundaries, and I'm honored to represent and care for this team of pioneers and trailblazers. One of my first initiatives as CTO is establishing the tech preview channel, and I talked about this at length when we talked about the when we went over the postmortem for 318. because that's basically when all this started out. They posted about it beforehand.
right
They
back.
talked about it in the postmortem, and it's a great idea, and it's been executed pretty well. Obviously, things haven't come through as quickly as we like, but it's been working really well now in order for them to be able to test and iterate on technology, not just testing features like like they do in Avocati. This is for testing technology. Um, it's a space where developers can fearlessly test large technology changes with players way before they go live, fostering the spirit of open development with our community. In 2024, our server meshing journey is hitting its stride after years of dedication. We're closing in on the original version we set out to achieve. Now, obviously, there have been some delays because we all know that iCache didn't work out, and that required about 18 months worth of rework in order to get us to the PES and the replication layer and the entity graph that we have now. And then on top of that, COVID really slowed that down. So, that's part of the reason we're just now getting to server meshing here in 2024 versus 2022 is because we had unforeseen delays with the COVID pandemic and with the failure of iCache, that they couldn't have predicted. Yeah, I hope we have more replicans and less replicants. But the journey started long ago with the introduction of streaming capabilities to Star Engine, like client-side object container streaming, followed by server-side object container streaming, and progressing to PES to maintain the entire game world. Every step has been building toward our goal to support MMO-level player populations in a high-fidelity game environment of large magnitude. And that's the thing, is most people don't realize that there has been incremental steps for 6-7 years now where they've been working on different pieces of technology that they had to get into the game and get functioning and get tested and prove out to move on to the next piece of technology. And it hasn't just been, oh, iCache came out of nowhere and then it was supposed to be server meshing. And no, without, you had to have the object container streaming, both client and server side first, along with a bunch of other things before you could move on to these next things. And that's what the development was doing back in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. All this is the bedrock tech that was built in order for server meshing and PES to work. Yeah, they said we were crazy.
And also with a very small team comparatively.
Oh yeah, much smaller. Yeah.
That's why it's taken so long, is they were trying to make industry-changing technology with indie studio levels of devs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when
Like,
you're
they're
talking
trying to
about
make
the numbers of engineers. Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to make like Unreal Engine level of technology or NVIDIA level of technology engineering at the studio size of, Media Molecule, which is the people who made Little Big Planet.
Mm-hmm.
They've moved mountains, okay? They've done some work.
Yeah, and it that's why it took so much time to get the momentum going, is because you start off with a small number of people pushing this to get momentum going and getting it getting it done, and now we have more and more people, and they're really hitting their stride, and it's taking its time, but it's we're finally there. We're finally getting there. We are gearing up to release the replication layer in 3.23. This is a big deal. It's the foundation we build the mesh on. As a player, you should perceive this specifically when dealing with server crashes, as those will no longer cause, immediate disconnection, but gracefully recover, allowing you to continue to play. For developers, this milestone marks the true separation between the simulation and the replication. A humongous achievement for the game and for Star Engine. So we've had the replication layer. That was part of the PES, one of the 8 new services that launched with PES, but it's been running on the server. And now we're separating replication from simulation. So the replication layer is going to be run on essentially a different server. But because they're all, the dedicated game server that's doing the simulation and the replication layer and the entity graph are all essentially in the same server stack over at Amazon, the communication between the three and all the other microservices, what have you, that feed information into them is lossless. That's why what they're doing is so important, because games don't really do this. Everything just runs on the server for most games because they don't need this level of technology to make what they're doing work, because what they're doing isn't all that ambitious. But in order to do what Star Citizen's trying to do, they have to have all these microservices running in parallel, but on different servers, because otherwise the servers will just get bogged down. They can't process all that information, all these commands. But if another server is doing it and then communicating the result back to the simulation, back to the replication, that's how it's able to run efficiently and effectively. And not only that, that's how it's able to scale. That's why other games can't scale like Star Citizen is trying to do, because you can't, if everything's running on one server, you just make more and more servers, but each one is its own server still. They're not generally part of an overall large shard. Other games have done things that are similar, but not in the way that Star Citizen's doing it, and not at the scale that CIG is doing.
And that's something that a lot of people, not a lot of people take note of, but a lot of people don't understand and wouldn't understand unless they do things like watch GDC talks, is every single implementation that you've ever seen of any kind of server tech, doesn't matter if it's Minecraft, every Steam game, every single implementation of any kind of networking is bespoke in some way. So if you ever see a Reddit post or a Spectrum post of server meshings in World of Warcraft on what is it called? What was the thing? Ultima Online. Yes, they have a form where two servers can communicate to each other and players can transition from one server to the other. Those two games don't have the same server meshing or server transition technology, nor do any of those have any relation to, nor the magnitude of Star Citizen's implementation of server
the
meshing
level
or
of
server
simulation that
transition.
those servers are trying to do is infinitely less complicated than what CIG is doing with a
AKA,
64-bit precision massive world. Yeah, it is not comparable at all. But hey, we're not hitting pause there. We're charging full steam ahead towards launching our first multi-server mesh in 4.0. For this, multiple servers work together to simulate parts of the universe. As a player, this will enable you to visit Pyro through the jump gate, where the jump tunnels transition seamlessly between game servers. Game shards will also host more players, so you should encounter more friends or foes along the way. This will mark a new beginning for our game architecture. Now, it's interesting because they don't specify. They don't say, what the configuration will be, because they don't know. But they just say multiple servers will work together to simulate parts of the universe. And multi-server
I think that's
mesh.
exactly what they're trying to figure out with the server meshing test is what is the optimum? What are we going to go with? Can we exist with more servers per shard?
Yeah. And because
I guarantee they want the highest player concurrency in a single shard.
Yeah,
that is
highest
reasonable.
Functional. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he talks about the being able to jump to Pyro through the jump gate, which is important because that's the player facing aspect of it. Whereas
I wish we would use jump point since we don't get gates.
Exactly, right?
It's
There's no
jump
gate
point,
there.
No gate.
Yeah.
But he's a server dev. I will allow it because he's a server dev, not an artist, not a lore person. I will allow it.
But that's player facing. Whereas if they use two servers to simulate Stanton, there won't be anything player facing. You won't see yourself transitioning from one server to another within Stanton. And so they don't specifically mention that because it's not player facing. The goal is that you don't notice the difference. Kind of like with 323 and 318 or 318 and PES. The goal of PES is for you to not notice the difference in the PES being there, that being able to replicate what we had before using all new technology. That was the goal. Now, obviously, it's taken a while to get there, but we're there. The the PS is working now. We don't have the issues that we did when it first came out. Um, but that's been the goal all along, is to be able to have it be seamless, to not have players notice that you're transitioning from server to server. This will mark a new beginning for our game architecture. In the coming weeks and months, get ready for more technical preview. Weeks and months. Get ready for more technical preview tests with various mesh configurations, multiple game servers per solar system, and seamless transitions without gates. That's what that's what we're talking about here. Transition from server to server within Stanton. We're talking about layouts where servers are dedicated to entire planets and moons. Others focus solely on landing zones or other key locations, with plenty of higher player count experiments. So we are already testing at 800 players. I guarantee you, we probably will go higher than that, because they're going to take this first. This is just the first round that we just had this last weekend. They're going to make lots of optimizations and fixes and changes.
I guarantee the next one's going to include that landing zone one.
Yeah,
because there was no landing zone bespoke, at least according to
even if they only do one. That's all they need to do is have Hurston be its own server, because they want to be able to test. Because this is not only about seeing how efficiently a server will run, having an authority over a certain region, but also testing these transitions, because it's you have a lot more people coming and going out of Lorville, into the whatever that server entity zone would be around it, than you do just crossing space.
I wonder what a target setup would do. So you have each landing zone be a server, and you have the planet be another server, and then you have the space around it be another server, whether you make the moons their own server or not, whatever. And then you have general space be another server, and do this target thing.
Yeah, that could be interesting if they did every landing zone as a server, and then every planet or every landing zone, all 4 landing zones are a server, all 4 planets are a server, and then make all the moons another server, and then have all the interconnecting space another server, because they did that. If you watch or something similar to that, minus the landing zone.
Most of the time, there was the interconnecting space is a single server most of the time.
Yep.
Because it doesn't have to do a whole lot except for simulating players.
Yeah, simulating players, and it'll be interesting to see if they had anything turned off in terms of the whatchamacallit, the zones, probability volumes. Yeah, were
they making it work yet?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They do
have to solve the planetary rotational issue as well. Which
the planet's not rotating? Or are you talking about orbiting?
Both are fixed, because even static server meshing can be moving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I thought
its authority is static, but its position can be rotate and orbiting planes. Well, they're working on it, and basically they've said they can do it. It's just does it add to gameplay, and does it make sense in gameplay? They could, and the biggest problem why we don't is the star map. So they'll have to reconvene at some later time. But if they were going to do it, I would expect it around the time they finish. I would expect a yes or no final answer at around the time they finish Planet Tech V5.
Yeah,
because
I think it'd be interesting
as a question.
It'll make hauling very interesting. Yeah, especially but that's a lot more work for them in terms of balancing, what planets, how fast do they orbit, yeah. Let's see. I'm genuinely proud to be part of this team. While we face challenges ahead, I'm filled with relentless optimism, knowing that amazing successes are waiting for us. 07 Benoit Beausejour. And why don't you take the next two, this one, and then the following
all the way down to the next quote?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if only my nose would actually chill out. don't know why, but my allergies decided to hit me like a truck.
You don't need
As
to
we
breathe.
set our, yeah, no, that's not a thing. Don't worry, I'm not. As we set our sights on the year ahead, the team remains focused and committed to ushering the community into uncharted territories with the release of Pyro and Star Citizen Alpha 4.0. I'd like to reread that. Pyro and Star Citizen 4.0. They're not coming before. Stop saying it. I cannot stress how much this is an inflection point, as it will allow many more players to play together, but also to seamlessly travel to different star systems. All of this points towards 2024 being our biggest and best year yet in the universe of Star Citizen. But Star Citizen 4.0 is not our final destination. And with that, I have more exciting news to share. See, I got way too excited at that sentence. As we revealed at CitizenCon with Squadron 42 achieving its feature complete milestone, we are now able to bring features developed for Squadron 42 to the persistent universe at an accelerated rate. As part of this, towards the end of the year, we decided to reorganize the Star Citizen and Squadron 42 teams to be more integrated to facilitate bringing several years worth of feature work and polish to Star Citizen. And finally, set our sails out for Star Citizen's own finish line. Dun dun dun.
And
Well, we recognize that. Go ahead.
This sentence right here is a good summary of what Naz and I have been saying for years. Is those like the devs that are being brought back, that have been brought back into the fold on Star Citizen, have largely been working on Star Citizen and Squadron 42 at the same time, because they've been working on features for both. And instead of having to work on those features for a live environment, which slows them down, they've been working on them in isolation. And now they're able to bring them back into the dev cycle, into the dev branches and integrate them into the networked environment. And we're getting a whole big content rush because these features have already been developed and are largely, they work with the engine. They just haven't been working in a networked environment. And so that's why it's going to feel like we're getting so like everybody's like, oh, they're come back over, so development's going to speed up. And it's like, well, in this first year, development isn't going to speed up because they're basically just catching Star Citizen up with Squadron 42 with features that have already been developed. It's not speeding up development. It's
I think people the portion of the community that follows in word, not in like reading, are going to think that this next year is going to be super fast. And then we're going to hit a wall come 2023 that we're going to start developing a lot of stuff again. Because 3.23, there's not a lot of new things in it. There's a lot of stuff that they did over the past 2 years coming in.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
going to look like a lot of development all at once.
Yeah, it hasn't been recently developed. It's stuff that has been worked on for years. And it's not, it's just like other features that have been getting worked on for Star Citizen. We don't see them, they've only been working on it for 6 months. No, they've been working on this for years. And now it's finally at a release state. Same thing now with this stuff. It was at a release state in Squadron, or a feature complete state, and now they're moving into the dev branch. So now will development after all of the PU related features from Squadron get integrated, will development on Star Citizen after that be faster than before? Yes. After that, they will be working on features faster. That's part of why, as we get to this own finish line, why this is a big deal. Because this next year is we're trying to get, Squadron 42 is up here. We're trying to bring Star Citizen up here in terms of feature parity, so that way if you played either game, you'd be like, everything's familiar. The star map's the same, the HUD is the same, EVA is the same. They're trying to get them to feature parity, and then Squadron won't change. They might add some more things to it for episode 2, but not a whole lot. And Star Citizen development will go this way because they're going to continue to develop features and mechanics for Star Citizen that aren't needed for Squadron. There'll be a handful of things that will get brought back over, but very little.
I imagine Squadron 42 Episode 1 will have a update when Squadron 42 Episode 2 comes out
Yep.
to bring
Yeah.
all the features that have been developed for that one or for Star Citizen and brought into Episode 2
Yeah.
retroactively added to the old one.
EVA
But
tier
like
3,
stuff like crafting,
you know.
base building, I mean, no, I don't know crafting, but base building, farming, bounty hunting, not needed for a squadron. So those things just haven't been worked on. So those are like base building interiors and distribution centers and cargo hauling. Those are the things that are now going to start ramping up and be brought into this feature complete state and actual salvage. And because we're waiting on Maelstrom for that, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff moving right now that we don't see because the progress tracker is waiting on the final say for 1.0. A lot of stuff. Like there's a lot of dev work being done right now, and we just can't see it because we're kind of with the scheduling time got inflated this year because of hundreds of new devs moving back from Squadron and them deciding we're going to work on a 1.0 roadmap. So it got way inflated, so we don't really know a lot of the stuff that we normally know.
But and I think it's important to remind everybody is people think that is slowing down development right now. Is people are like, oh, well, they don't have a schedule, so they don't know what to work on. No. All the things that they showed off at CitizenCon is what they're going to be working on over the next year. They have plenty of work to do. They know what they're working on.
They have internal schedules.
Yeah, the roadmap to 1.0.
Just because they're not publishing them doesn't mean they're not working.
Yeah, the roadmap to 1.0 is really what does it look like past this summer and this fall. After that.
Yeah, past the 12 months, including this last CitizenCon.
Yeah, because it's going to take, four full quarter patches at least to get Star Citizen to feature parity with Squadron. And that's a lot of work for all those devs. Now, obviously, the PU teams are continuing to work on stuff because, hello, persistent hangars and building interiors and UGFs, they're still working.
Raider Commander.
Yeah, they've got stuff to work on. They haven't stopped working just because there's a 1.0 roadmap being worked on. But in the next year is when we're going to see that sort of long-term planning and what what those teams are going to be working on after this year.
Yep.
So please continue. Sorry.
All right. No, that's fine. While we recognize that there is no definitive finish line in an online MMO, which is redundant, massively multiplayer online. There's online massively multiplayer online. Anyway, just noticed that. And that we will always be adding new features and content for many, many years to come. Star Citizen 1.0 is what we would consider the feature and content set to represent commercial release. That's it. Pack it up. We're done. This means that the game is welcoming to new players, stable, and polished with enough game proof.
Part of the ship.
Oh, nice. Oh, wow.
Oh, we just got
Welcome,
a raid.
everyone.
Hey,
Welcome.
a raid from Renoxus. I apologize, everyone. I am a bad streamer, and I don't have the little follow commands. Thank you so much for the raid, Renoxus. Thanks for coming and hanging out, everybody, from Renoxus' stream. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you've been having a fun night. We are going over the letter from the chairman from a couple weeks ago. And then after we get done with this, we're going to talk about what a Star Citizen 1.0 release might look like in terms of tech, features, mechanics, and locations. And then we're going to get caught up on the Roadmap Roundups for Q1 2024. So this is the Pathfinders podcast. If you're new to the show, Nazeris and I, we chart the way through all the nebulous information surrounding the development of Star Citizen, Squadron 42, and but yeah, that's what we're all about. And if you just saw the MooBot in chat, it's just to let you know that I am always raising money for StackUp.org. I take no monetization for myself. So any and all monetization I get from Twitch and YouTube goes 100% in its entirety to StackUp.org. So if you hang out and watch a commercial, if you decide to sub because you hate commercials, if you want to donate directly to StackUp.org, you can. I have that working. You can hit the donor drive, but yeah, I'm all about stackup.org and helping veterans and members of the military connect with video games and gaming communities to treat and prevent PTSD, because it works for me. So I hope it works for other people. But yeah, that's the spiel.
And welcome, White Crab. Not part of the raid, but welcome to the Star Citizen community. Hi.
Yeah. Simultaneous raid by White Crab and the Renoxus stream. All right, please continue.
Followed by White Crab, raid by Renoxus.
Yeah, thank you for the follow. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the support.
Yeah. Welcome. I hope you have fun. All right, now where was it? This means that the game will be welcoming to new players, stable, and a polished with enough gameplay and content to engage players continuously.
Oh, White Crab with the sub. Thanks so much.
Oh, nice.
Like I just said, that sub money will go to stackup.org when I get a payout. So party markers may never be fixed. Yeah. Well, that's one of the systems I have to refactor for server meshing.
And party markers and all party stuff is Benoit's territory, and he's on server meshing right now, so it's just not getting fixed anytime soon.
Yeah. Why do you think the party marker system hasn't been refactored? Because they knew they were going to have to refactor it for server meshing.
And they've said for years now that Org 2.0 is locked behind server meshing because it's the same devs. It sucks, but here we are. Once we can kick the stupid lump of crap that is Pyro out the door, we can finally get to the good features. Like herding cows. In other words, it is no longer alpha or early access. Much like we planned out Squadron 42's drive to feature complete and the upcoming content complete status, we spent significant time looking at what Star Citizen 1.0 means and what it would take to get there. To facilitate this, I am pleased to share that our very own Rich Tyrer will be taking over a new role as Senior Game Director, overseeing both the development of Star Citizen and Squadron 42 alongside me, Chris Roberts. With this change, you'll start to see more rapid expansion of features and content coming from Squadron 42 to Star Citizen, starting with Alpha 323, which is shaping up to be one of our biggest releases to date in terms of new features getting into players' hands. When we announced at CitizenCon that we would start bringing across feature work that we had developed and refined in the push to feature complete for Squadron 42, we were not kidding. And as game director on Squadron 42, Rich played a crucial role in helping steer Squadron 42 to its current feature complete status. Under his stewardship, Squadron 42 experienced a significant surge in progress, and a momentum we fully anticipate will continue to carry us towards content complete beta and release.
And so this is part of why we're doing this episode this way, because they're talking about 1.0 and what release for 1.0 looks like. And so we're going to take a look at that after we get through the letter from the chairman. But we're also going to get caught up on the roadmap roundups for this quarter, because we're going to be looking at everything that they're bringing into Alpha 323 that they've talked about. You know, there's only been a couple things that have been taking a minor hit, but other than that, it's just been more and more features getting added.
I think it's great that they said, like, hey, we can't spawn vehicles in the freight elevator, sorry. And then the IC comes out. By the way, you can just call up vehicles and drive them off the thing into the other parts of the hangar and just call up another ship. It's just like, you made a workaround for yourself. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Yeah. So there isn't... Yeah.
Did you want to do the quote?
Oh, yeah, I'll do the Richard Tyrer senior game. Scroll down a little bit. There we go. So, firstly, I'd like to take this opportunity to say how great it is to be back working on Star Citizen. Some of you may already know me, but I was the core gameplay pillar director before I moved over to become the game director on Squadron 42 a few years back. So, if you remember, and as I covered this in the podcast when it happened in summer and fall 2021, or fall into summer, fall 2021, summer to summer 2022. they moved the core gameplay pillar and the teams under it over to Squadron 42. There's like 4 or 5 teams or whatever, along with this guy. They all moved over to have their work prioritized by Squadron 42. And on top of that, the UI teams, and I forget there was one other thing. So that's what is essentially moving back is the core gameplay pillar and the UI teams. And, there's been a lot of other reorganization, but the core gameplay pillar is a lot of people. Yeah, it's so that was the big issue that people had is all those people were working on. Everybody's like, oh, they're working on Squadron. It's like, no, they're working on core gameplay that is shared between Star Citizen and Squadron. Now, as I covered it, you can go back and see all the deliverables that they're working on. They're shared deliverables. It's things like EVA Tier 2. It's things like the personal interaction system, PyPIS, whatever you want to call it. It's all the HUD and MFD stuff, the flight model, all of that. It falls into the core gameplay pillar, and that's what's they're being moved back into SC, and they're bringing all the feature work that they've done with them. With this new role, will be coming on board to help push Star Citizen to the next stage of its development, ultimately culminating in leaving early access and releasing the 1.0 version of the game. They want to, say Squadron releases maybe, I'm just going to throw a date out there, May 2025. With Invictus launch week or something. I'm just throwing that out there. That will be the 1.0 version of Squadron. And right now, they are bringing everything over from Squadron that is feature complete, and then working from that to get to the 1.0 version of Star Citizen, the very polished, released version of Star Citizen with all the base features that they expect the game to be built on. And we're going to talk about those in a little bit. And of course, they'll continue to develop it. Just like for Squadron 42 Episode 2 and Episode 3, there will be more features and more locations and more ships, things added to it. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more added to Star Citizen, but it will be continue to be developed. But it won't be in this sort of backwards manner where Squadron first, Star Citizen second. This begins with identifying what features and content are required to create a fully realized space MMO while laying the foundations for future updates. So that's what Naz and I are going to be looking at in a little bit. To be 100% clear, though, this doesn't mean going back to the drawing board or totally changing the vision of what SC currently is. I've already been seeing people go nuts of like, oh, they're going to cut a bunch of features and this is going to... They're literally saying that is not what we're doing. Whoops. Sorry, press the back button.
So I just looked it up to see exactly specific words. Content complete. The beta phase, blue, is where the game is considered content complete. No new content is allowed at all. The only thing that is done is fixing of existing bugs, and the low priority bugs tend to get put on the wish list or marked as shippable. So basically, and this is from Ask Game Dev .tumblr, but Ask Game Dev is very popularly known. So that's what they mean by content complete. They mean beta. Just putting that out there as a thing.
Yeah, that's very accurate. Because obviously there's going to be a lot of polishing for a long time, but it will have a good amount of polish. All the features and content will be there, and they'll continue to build on it. But the base that they expect will be there. Let's see. With this aim, Chris and I have overseen the creation of a roadmap that takes us all the way up to 1.0 and outlines all the features and content we need, and just as crucially, the ones that will come post-release. So this is really important because they have a vision for what 1.0 is, and then they have a vision for things that they will add post 1.0 release.
In the expansion packs.
Yeah. Essentially. Yeah, things, that features,
confirmed.
Things that It's just things that they think, okay, this isn't foundational to the 1.0 experience of the game. This can come later. Um, and
And
I
I
have a couple
imagine it has
question
something to
marks
do
on
with
our
the Endeavor.
notes. Yeah. Well, I have a couple question marks on things where I'm like, okay, is this a 1.0 feature or is this a post 1.0 feature? And we'll talk about that in a minute. Um, but they do have a roadmap now. Will we see this? I think we're going to see it. I think in the next, over the next year, this will get added, but they won't give dates. They're just going to say that here are the things that we're going to be working on. We think these things should come first, then these things, and then these things on the way to 1.0. We're not going to give a patch number. We're not going to give dates. That's what I would expect. A sort of
I
incremental list of we're going to get building interiors in first, and then
yeah.
we'll work on asteroid facilities. As an
I
example.
I think it will be because Chris Roberts a Citizen Con thing.
Oh yeah,
I
no,
think
I
I
totally
think
agree.
there'll be like a keynote 1.0, what is Star Citizen 1.0, whatever he wants to call it. I think it will be
Hmm.
specifically not to what 1.0, the roadmap for 1.0. I think that specifically is going to be a CitizenCon thing. We'll get the progress tracker back in the interim, but
Hmm.
specifically the what is 1.0 will be a talk for Chris at CitizenCon.
Yeah, White Crab is talking about
Yeah.
the Black Ocean series of books. If you enjoy audiobooks and you enjoy sci-fi, I cannot recommend the Black Ocean series more. And there's like it's there's Black Ocean, but then there's a bunch of like offshoot series as well. Same characters, same universe, just sort of different timelines, but
Oh,
following
cool.
individual characters. Oh my god, it's entertaining as all hell, and the narrator who does all the characters and the voices is so good. The characters are just so um, it is Firefly with space wizards and talking
Oh
dogs.
boy.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's good. It's good. You have to,
Interesting.
especially like White Crab says, um, the entire Black Ocean series is an omnibus, 135 hours for one purchase. Like one credit is like, 10, 11, $12 or whatever. So yeah, if you're really looking for something to sink your teeth into, sorry, tangent, but I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. Um,
White Crab also asked how much of the Star Citizen player base is like old school Chris Roberts fans from Wing Commander. Not as many as you'd think. If you randomly
it
ask
was a
people
greater
around,
portion earlier, but
yeah,
nowadays, yeah,
yeah, post
I am one.
2018-19, it's really been a minority. A lot of people aren't here. Like, it's very common to find people who have no idea who Chris Roberts is and who didn't know Squadron 42 existed. It's pretty common to hear those two things.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah,
not a ton. There's a lot, but they're a very small minority.
I think that
Again,
people are going to
the
try and
1.1 million
yeah,
players.
I think that people are, and that's just the people who played this last year. There's like 2 million backers now, individual backers, because I can track what are duplicates and stuff, and people that have alts and what have you, and so that yeah, we're that's nuts. Um, I think that like you said, I think that's definitely a CitizenCon thing, and we're gonna take a look at that because they've done it before. They made the mistake of saying patch numbers and all that, and I think that they are going to have learned and do the whole no dates, just this is the list, and these are the things that we're planning on getting out release first, and this is what comes after, and this is that, and that way this whole list is what the 1.0 vision is, and here are the things that we plan to develop post 1.0, and they won't give any sort of ammo to the refundians of Reddit to say, oh, they'll never hit that timeline. They won't give us a timeline. They're just going to say this is what we're working on, and this is what we're working on, and we have nearly 1,200 devs to work on it now. Um, so it's I think it's a good plan. Um, let's see.
So, according to this, Freelancer, which is easily the most brought up Chris Roberts game, what zero no sales in Japan according to this website. Again, probably is very wrong, but no sales in Japan. Not allowed to say how many sales, but it was 0.02 million in Asia, 0.03 in Europe, some smattering of some them 0.0 million in other, and then 0.05 total. So I mentioned the other includes the U.S. So yeah, we have 1.1 million Star Citizens. There's a lot of us. Not huge in Japan. I mean, it was a different time and it was a specific game. So it's just it may have been big for what it was. Just it didn't, break 1 million sales in these locations.
Let's see. So,
Yes.
With my role now overseeing both projects with Chris and the fact that Squadron 42 has hit its feature complete milestone, it has provided an opportunity to reshuffle the teams. This should see a large contingent of gameplay teams now coming back to focus on SC. A large contingent, not all of them, a large contingent of gameplay teams. Now, there are still going to be the cinematics teams, the environment and locations teams, all those people, the people that you need to build the chapters and do all the level design for Squadron are going to stay on Squadron. But the majority of the gameplay people are coming back over. We've also taken the opportunity to move away from heavily specialized teams like Actor Feature, which was one of the core gameplay pillar teams, and Vehicle Feature, again another core gameplay pillar team, to more generic gameplay teams that should allow us to be a lot more flexible and shoulder some of the heavier burdens those teams used to carry. That's why in the monthly reports it's more written now. It's what is it called? It's do they just call it core gameplay pillar or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not pillar, just core gameplay.
Yeah, the core gameplay part of the monthly report, because all these teams are part of a greater, larger team, allowing them to work more in concert and less in isolation. There's been numerous times throughout the game's development where things have been developed and you run into it that, oh, okay, this team was working kind of in a silo and they didn't think about how this thing that they're working on affected or needed to be better integrated with this thing that is the responsibility of another team. And so that's going to be going away. So that way features get developed in a more holistic way. While these teams will still be instrumental in shipping Squadron 42, that's why some, not all, it's a large contingent, not all of them, they will now be focused on bringing all the existing features over to SC, as well as working on brand new features like base building and crafting to help round out the 1.0 experience. So that basically telling us that base building and crafting are part of 1.0. But we probably already knew that because we knew they were going to be working on it this year after being told at CitizenCon. At least base building. But they did mention crafting as essentially part of base building. With every release going forward, the intention is to move ourselves closer to that end goal. So you should expect to see large updates each quarter with many changes to systems that have not been touched in a long time, like economy, insurance, but more importantly, economy. Why do you think they've been making these economy changes? Because they're setting a baseline.
I don't think that I wouldn't actually say that economy takes precedent over the changes to insurance there. Because the implication of insurance being cited there is the game getting a lot harder and it's going to stop being so arcadey, so death forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
The implication of them saying, hey, we're going to be working on not 323 balance or 4.0 balance or 4.1 balance. We're going to be working on 1.0 balance, which means a lot of the systems are going to start really cranking down on their forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big things that's they're going to start cranking down on is security in the next update. Timers are going to get longer. Stuff's going to get harder to get. Death's going to mean more. And you're going to be up the creek without a paddle a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the arcadiness is going to go away, especially as they get to work on additional systems. But even in Stanton, things are
Engineering is in 323 in Ring Commander.
targeted for 4.0.
So,
We're,
yep.
we talked about it in a previous episode. The but this is a big thing because there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of things that haven't been, they were released years ago, multiple years ago. They haven't been refactored, they haven't been touched because they were going to wait until the game, other things were developed. And so now that other things have been developed or getting integrated, these teams can come back and work on, because not only do you have to have these new features from Squadron coming in to give you that sort of feature complete 1.0 experience, but you also have to refactor those older features and bring them back up to that same level parity. Because there's a lot of legacy content in the game. Some of it's just getting straight up replaced with the new things from Squadron, but there's things for the PU only that have been in game for years that need to be refactored and to not only work with the new technologies that we're getting in the form of server meshing, the replication layer, these microservices, but also to just change the way that we interact with them and to better represent what the experience is going forward. So economy, insurance, Quantum is not dead, folks. They're just setting the baseline for what Quantum will work with to start, but I wouldn't expect to see Quantum until after base building and resource management for locations.
I wouldn't be shocked if Quantum is like one of the last systems for 1.0. Yeah. I think virtual NPC and that entire Tony Z everything is 1.0.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I can see that. The big thing for the economy portion of it is you have to have resource management for locations, and resource management isn't just the physical portion in ships that you can interact with. It's just the recipe system that runs under the hood, because there will be production nodes at places like Lorville that you will never see. And the only way they interact with by players is via you putting things into the freight elevator and taking things out. And the resource management system will take those things and they'll disappear, and then it'll use it along with labor, quanta, in order to make new things. And then they'll pop out and you take it and you'll go somewhere else with it. But they demonstrated how that would work in the first Quantum presentation with the recipe system. That's what resource management is. It's a recipe system, and they just showed you the basics. But that's how it's going to work. Is it's going to require materials and it's going to require labor. So, alongside a whole suite of quality of life improvements to things like inventory, yay, the looting menu, oh my gosh, and not having the magic bag of holding by just pressing I. The mission system is going to get a big revamp with server meshing. And the mobiGlass, coupled with totally brand new features and content. We have set very ambitious goals for ourselves internally, both for the game and technology teams. But Chris and I truly believe that they are achievable. We'll see how. I really like their passion, but Rich and Chris are notorious for setting very lofty goals. Now, do I think that in previous years, if they hit 50% of what they're working to achieve, it was a miracle. But now I think we're at the point where if they'll probably hit 80 to 90% of what they're trying to achieve, if they were to set a timeline. But they won't set timelines, so we'll be safe. Junkyard in Space 07, thanks for coming and hanging out with us. Yeah, Chris is more overly ambitious than Rich. He is, but man, I mean, there's been multiple times where you get them on camera at the same time and they feed on each other. Like, what was it, the 2021 Citizen Con?
The Rich Tower Talk?
Or was that 22?
Yeah. That was... I think that was 22. That was the last year before...
the last non-live year. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one, when they did their big... they did a big Death of a Spaceman type talk, covering that and numerous other things in 2020. Before Death of before Regeneration had a name and it was just an idea, without all the lore to go with it. man, anytime you get the two of them on camera together, oh, wow, yeah, it's always that way, and it's always Jared has to, you know, bring him back in, and you know, as much as it's interesting to hear, you know, they go off on tangents, and it makes it really hard to follow. Yeah, nothing wrong with being a dreamer, absolutely, and I think the CIG as a company, in terms of its capabilities, is in, is much closer to being capable of delivering more of what the dream is in a reasonable time frame than it was 3, 5, 7 years ago. Um, Now, you know, 100% able to? No. Let's be realistic, at least not in terms of time frame. Um, but yeah, the gap has been narrowed considerably. Um,
Plus, they have gotten
yeah,
a little better at it.
yeah. There's been a lot of trial and error and failure, and you know, pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and keep going.
Yeah.
Nazeris
Like,
and I, you continue.
all right. Working in tandem with Rich, I, Chris Roberts, will continue to establish the strategic vision to bring to life the intended Star Citizen gameplay experience. The intended Star Citizen gameplay experience, aka stuff's gonna get hard. Listen to the words that they're saying. As Rich said, over the past few months, our teams have been busily planning in the upcoming major milestones for the persistent universe, culminating in what we refer to as Star Citizen 1.0. As that roadmap comes together and becomes validated, we look forward to sharing with you both its vision and executional plan later this year. And when they say later this year, they almost always mean CitizenCon.
Yep, 100%.
Uh, and the reason they have to build it, check it, and then validate it is because Chris has actually done something really smart. He said, "Hey, I'm really excited. Producers, what do you think we can accomplish? John Crew, how many ships can we get out, and what are those ships?" He doesn't say, "We're gonna get this ship and this ship and this ship. I'm gonna sell 5 more concepts. We're gonna get this ship done." No, he goes to John Crew and says, "John Crew, what can your team do? What ships are we releasing till we get to 1.0?" He's been very good at that over the past 2 years. He's leaning more heavily on his producers, on his team leads, to tell him what the plan is, not him trying to tell them what the plan is, which is how we got, 2016 Squadron release.
Oof.
It will always exist until we have Star Citizen 1.0 and Squadron 42 released. That will be the fallback stab. Always. People try to use like 600 million in 12 years. I'm like, that's an accomplishment. What do you mean? They're not released. They've raised $600 million and they're still alive. It's insane. But yeah, they're checking with their plans with the teams. That's what the validation, I believe. I don't have any proof, but that's what I believe the validation is. And that it can actually be done. As part of this development reorganization, we have made a few significant changes from a personnel standpoint. I have moved to Austin, Texas from Los Angeles to be closer in time zone to our main development operations in Manchester, Frankfurt, and Montreal. As far as I know, he's still in Manchester, isn't he?
They were in Manchester for a while. They moved from Los Angeles to he was staying in Manchester for a bit, but they were still like living in LA. But before moving to LA, he was living in Austin. When they first started everything, he was living in Austin.
Interesting.
So he's come around full circle.
Hmm.
But I think that also means that, and I have heard this via multiple people at CIG, that CIG Austin is the next studio to get a new office. So,
Oh, very cool.
yeah.
Whether
It'll probably be a new office, but not a big expansion, because Austin is expensive.
Yeah, not as expensive as LA.
Yeah,
Texas has better tax benefits as well. Nice.
Yeah, it does from a corporate standpoint, but everything in Austin is expensive. It is really hard for people to live there and work. It is not super sustainable for devs.
I'm spending significant time in our largest studio in Manchester. There we go. With almost 600 staff, I sit with Rich and the teams working towards completion of Squadron 42 and Star Citizen. As part of this, we made the difficult decision to ask the Los Angeles studio, our Los Angeles development team, which had increasingly been providing support for the main development teams based in Manchester, to relocate to join other teams, primarily in Manchester, but also in Austin and Montreal. I don't know who said it, so I don't know if it's an actual source. But also, as expensive as Texas is, Los Angeles is actually getting much worse, much faster.
Oh yeah,
And
and
so it's
most of Texas is still very affordable, but Austin is stupid expensive. Yeah.
got it. So like
Um,
keeping up, and I think they mentioned this in the financial report, keeping up with inflation in the U.S., specifically in California, is where it's actually hurting them.
mm-hmm.
So this is why they are deprioritizing LA. They want
Oh.
to keep paying people a livable wage, but the U.S. and California. So
So interesting thing right here. If you remember when they announced the new studio in Manchester back in like what was it 2020?
yeah,
They said that the goal was for at the end of 2023 for it to be home to 700 staff, up from 400 when it was in I forget the name of the other town. So now it's almost 600 in Manchester. They're still 100 off of their goal for end of 2023, and the goal for the end of 2026 for Manchester was 1,000. So that's how much they still want to hire another 400 devs just for Manchester, and they're at over 1,100. So Naz and I did the math when we were talking about the future funding model for Star Citizen, and we said between 1,600 and 2,000 total devs for CIG by the end of 2026. And here they are, they're 100 off of their goal for Manchester, and they're at a total of over 1,100. So, yeah, they're
I'm pretty sure it's not PC. I'm pretty sure it's energy consumption. Specifically, just PCs are. No, they do have specific things on PCs because PCs draw so much power.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. Yeah. That sucks. Like, you're not allowed to have like a 1,500 watt power supply or something.
Yep.
Ridiculous.
You can't order it shipped to California. You have to essentially you have to smuggle it in.
Yep. Yeah, and then there's the water consumption stuff. Like, LA is just a mess right now. Not LA, but California is just, they are hurting in all of the ways. Electricity storage, not shortage as much as they are trying to. They basically got to the whole, we see electricity consumption as a problem that is basically, instead of saying, let's do a whole bunch of green energy, they said, let's make people stop using fossil fuels by taxing them for it. So they got to the whole crypto and Web3 power problem before it became a thing. And so instead of just saying, hey, we're going to work on these green energy things, they're like, we're just going to make it more expensive to use fossil fuels. It's California.
Back to Star Citizen. Antimatter reactors.
Shrinking. Antimatter reactors. Yes! We'll still be in LA, while shrinking, will still be an important office for the company, but one focused on the business and support, or a business support role with marketing, finance, and legal and HR. As part of this reorganization, we sadly waved goodbye to the Persistent Universe Live Director, Todd Pappy, as he had to move back to the US from the UK last year for family reasons. After much soul searching, I determined that we cannot afford to have this role remote from the main team in Manchester for a good portion of the year. It is a sad moment, as Todd worked diligently for the last 9 years on Star Citizen, making many important contributions and providing excellent leadership of his teams. I wish him the best of luck and look forward to seeing what he does next, as do we all. I will miss him, and I will miss the sunny skies the beaches of LA or Los Angeles, but Star Citizen and Squadron 42 takes precedent. The journey is longer than and more difficult than I anticipated 11 and a half years ago, but the final destination is so much more exciting and fulfilling. I would
Because the
have never in
destination
my
has changed. What the original goal 11 and a half
yeah
years ago is not anywhere close to what it is now. That's why it's
yep
so much more exciting and fulfilling.
yeah server meshing was really not a thing they were planning on doing.
Oh, it wasn't.
Heck, they
Server meshing
planned
wasn't a
for
plan. The landable planets wasn't a thing. Yeah,
yeah load screens were the plan. They were the plan.
yeah. It was going to be Freelancer 2, Wing Commander 2, or Wing Commander Sex 7, whatever it is.
Yeah. I would have never in my dreams expected to have an opportunity to build something on the scale and ambition of Star Citizen. So say every lead designer ever. And because of this feel incredibly there's an I missing. And because of this, I feel incredibly blessed by all of your support, and I am determined to finish strong. There's an I missing. Anyway, in a marathon, they say the last mile is the hardest. But to quote the Roman Emperor Marcus, some Greek name, we do what we do now echoes in eternity. And somebody tried to convince me that this Roman guy is more famous than like Abraham Lincoln or a participation in the call you joined has clipped enabled something. What are you doing?
Oh, I streamed the screen. I forgot to do it for you earlier.
Oh, okay, I see. Thanks. I'm looking forward to you. I'm looking forward. Nope. I am looking forward to you getting your hands on Star Citizen Alpha 323 soon, where you will finally be able to experience many features we have been hard at work on for the past couple of years, which will then lead into Invictus Launch Week in May. As a lead up to Invictus, we have prepared a series of missions to earn your UEE Civilian Defense Force stripes and potentially earn an incredible, powerful, and unprecedented, really, in-game upgrade if you complete all of them, so you are ready to face Xeno threat in more personal manner. And I guess we now know what that is, being the Hornet.
F7 and F7A Mark II, F7C Mark II.
We just make it viable in game. Be nice.
No. Oh yeah, make a Bible. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a Roman name. It's a Greek name. It's a Greek name. Don't even. He's one of the most famous guys of all time. I'm not convinced. Like Genghis Khan. I know who Genghis Khan is. Khan. I know who Alexander the Great was. I know, well, I know the Han Dynasty. I don't know any of the emperors specifically. I know, there goes his name. Gandhi. I don't know. Marcus Greek.
Marcus Aurelius Roman. That's Roman.
I know, but his name is Greek.
No, that's a Roman name.
Yes, all Romans are Greeks.
How are all Romans Greeks?
Because they
Rome is in
traded
Italy.
places. Yes, because Greek owned everything before Rome owned everything back and then owned more.
Okay.
They counter-captured all the bases.
All right, please continue, because we got a long ways to go.
I'm down at the last bit.
Yep.
Your turn. You want me to keep going then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The power of community. The driving force behind our success is our extended team, each and every one of you. Together, we have built a community that not only plays a crucial role in our development, but also embodies our shared passion for the Star Citizen universe. It is you who have propelled us forward. Without your passion, your willingness to test, to be undeterred by bugs and crashes, to be vocal with your thoughts, and stamina for a long and windy road, there would be no Star Citizen or CIG. You were there for the iconic helmet flip and the opening of the hangar doors for the first time in Alpha 0.8. Together, we explored the vast expanse of the persistent universe for the first time in Alpha 2.0. And you were on board for the inaugural planetary landing in Alpha 3.0. And soon we will be leaving the Stanton system as we venture into the lawless wasteland of the Pyro system in Alpha 4.0, thanks to server meshing. And beyond this, Star Citizen 1.0, no alpha, twinkles on the horizon. The future has never been so bright, and I couldn't be happier taking this journey with all of you. Chris Roberts, founder and CEO of Cloud Imperium Games.
Hooray! Alrighty, so that is it for the letter from the chairman. And now I'm going to go ahead and switch screens really quickly and close that tab, and then we'll pull up the next bits of information because we're going to launch right into what Star Citizen 1.0 might be like.